Thank you, Priyanka, and hi everyone, and welcome to KubeCon. I'm Cheryl, I'm the VP of Ecosystem at the Cncf, and today I want to talk about why end users are not just passive consumers. But first of all, let me say how much I miss being together with all of you. KubeCon is a different experience every single time. We have had freezing snow in Austin, we've had floods in San Diego, and every time the community finds a way to really pull together. I particularly want to welcome you if this is your very first KubeCon. So from past events, we know that 70% of attendees are first-timers. So if that includes you, then welcome, and I'm really glad that you can be here. And let me tell you a little secret about conferences. The talks, the content you're going to hear in the next few days are great. But what I really enjoy is talking to people, finding out about what they're doing and learning about them. And of course, that's going to be much harder in a virtual conference than when it is when I can just grab a coffee with you. So I want you to do something for me right now. I want you to open up a text editor, and I want you to write one line. And this one line will say, I'm your name, and I want to chat about whatever. So maybe you are new to cloud and containers, and you just want to know, like, what is this Kubernetes thing? Does it even make sense for me? Maybe you've been using it for a little while, and you're thinking, am I making the right technical choices? What do other people use? Or maybe you really love cloud native, so you're thinking, how can I contribute more? How do I get my team and my organization to really care about open source? So keep this line and put it into the text chat and introduce yourself right now. And then keep introducing yourself over the next 3 days. Every time that you go to a talk or go to a booth, use that same line and just keep introducing yourself. Because the more times that you introduce yourself, the more chances you'll have to meet someone who wants to talk about the same things that you do. So why don't I reintroduce myself? I'm Cheryl, and I want to talk about why end users are not just passive consumers. So, of course, we all start as end users. I remember, in fact, the first time that I discovered Linux. I was 17, I was just about to go to university as a computer science student, and I needed a new computer. So I went online, I asked, what do computer science students usually use? And someone said, well, you can use whatever you want, but you see, you should probably check out Linux. So I was like, Linux? Okay, I've never heard of this, but I guess I do what the internet tells me to do. So I downloaded Ubuntu and I burnt it to a CD. And I very carefully wrote on the outside, L-U-N-I-X. Like, I knew so little about Linux that I didn't even know how to spell it. I wrote Lunix on the front of this. And that was my first taste of open source, of Linux, and to go from there now to being part of the Linux Foundation and driving open source has just been really fun for me. So when I talk about why end users are more than passive consumers, by end users, I mean people who adopt cloud native infrastructure, but they're not selling any cloud native products or services. So this includes the 150 companies in the CNCF end user community, which is the bit that I run. And what I see with this community is that just to use cloud native, you already have to have a certain level of sophistication. But to run it at scale, like these companies are doing, is so much harder because you have so many choices. It's not just choices like, do I need a service mesh or not? It's choices like, how do I build the best possible developer experience? Or how do I track what I'm spending and keep control of the costs? And people tell me all the time, like, hey, I've looked at the CNCF landscape. I'm just overwhelmed. There's too many choices. Where do I even begin? So it got me to thinking that if you could ask these 150 companies what they use, you would probably have a pretty good idea of what they think is valuable and what they recommend. So that's what I did. I created something called the CNCF End User Technology Radar, with the idea to share some of this real-world experience from end users. And every quarter, we would pick a different use case and we would ask people, what do you really recommend? So here is the first one. And the first one is on continuous delivery. So if I were picking continuous delivery solution, I would look at the things that are in the center, as more companies have used those and recommend them. And then I would go from adopt, I would go to the next ring to trial and look at those ones. And then I would take a look at the rest of the projects after that. And why do I think this is important? So to me, this is important because you have to have a real world view of cloud native. It's more than just open source. It's more than just any one product or project. And the only way that you can figure out what will work for you is by learning from others, by getting that real world experience from other end users, which is why end users are not just passive consumers. They have so much experience to share. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, I recommend you check out the CNCF End User Technology Radar. Keep an eye on it. We're publishing the next one very soon in September. And if you want your voice to be heard on the technology radar, then please come and join the CNCF end user community and meet your peers. Lastly, I want to say that if you're attending KubeCon, don't be a passive consumer. Don't just sit back and watch. But whether or not you're contributing to open source, you have so much to share, so much experience. And this is what KubeCon is really about. It's about connecting with people. It's about being part of the community. It's about sharing what you know and helping others. And even if all that you can share is something as simple as use Linux, then maybe you're helping a 17-year-old who is on her way to becoming a software engineer. So keep introducing yourself. Have a fantastic KubeCon. Thank you very much.